if Michael is actually sitting right here and watching us, what exactly would you say to him?
I would say, Michael, we love you and we want you home. We want to know that you're okay. If you don't want to come home, we really just want to know that you're alive and you're okay. And please get a hold of us somehow and let us know that you're okay.
That was the sister of missing person Michael Dillard, a young man who, it appears, ran away from home, but he's been gone almost a year at this point. Is there something we can do to help with this case? It's time to turn on the searchlight. Hey everyone, John Lorden here. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. Today we're looking into the case of Michael Dillard. His sister Brittany has been working very hard trying to raise exposure and to keep it raised in this case. Originally, when I looked into this case, the news results seemed like it was basically just a press release all around the time that he actually went missing, and then it kind of faded off quickly. Thankfully, NBC Dateline ran a piece on this as well. We get a lot more detail from there. And of course, the family has been running the Facebook page, and we get some more detail from there. And thankfully, Marissa over at The Vanished has also covered this case. So we're going to be able to give you a pretty good overview, but I highly recommend as soon as this video is done, if you really want to understand more of what could be going on in this case, check out The Vanished podcast. I'll have a link to it down below. But let's go ahead and get started at NamUs. And thankfully, a NamUs profile was created very fast in this case. Within 1 month of when he went missing, there was a profile created. Michael Allen Dillard. He is a male, white, Caucasian. He went missing on January 12th, 2018. That was a Friday, I believe. He's missing from Calvin, West Virginia, and he was 15 when he went missing. His birthday was, I believe it was actually last week. He is now 16 years old. Let's see what other information we can get. Height, 5 foot 5 inches tall, weight about 133 pounds. And circumstances, they have Michael may still be in the local area, or he may travel to the state of North Carolina. Michael may be in need of medical attention. And we don't have great details on that, but I think with some of the other components that we understand with what's going on in his story, I believe we can safely assume what some of that attention might be. He has brown hair. It is wavy, short on the sides and longer on top. He has hazel eyes, according to this profile. And for scars, he has a scar above his left eye. He has cutting scars on his arms, so that should certainly give us some pause and maybe give us a little insight into what's going on in this situation. This is a young man that has been struggling. These are the stories that I think are really important for us to cover because I know there are many other people out there that struggle in a similar way to Michael, and sometimes telling these stories might be able to give you indicators of problems that might be going on with people that are struggling in this way. So yeah, Michael had a very tough time leading up to his disappearance. But let's continue here. He also has a quarter-size scar on the top of his right hand. For clothing, they say he was wearing an orange jacket, a maroon t-shirt, black tank top, jeans, and they're saying, I believe they mean Deadpool, black and red socks. They don't have it listed here, but I believe he was also wearing shoes that were red as well. And for the images, we just basically have 2 photos of his face in here. Let's take a look at the area where he went missing. And this is in West Virginia. This is Calvin, West Virginia. If we turn on the satellite view, we can see we've got a lot of green out here. We've got a lot of shrubs and trees, a lot of coverage. So, of course, we're very concerned about that. There has been numerous searches that have gone in this area. For water sources, if we kick it back to the drawn map, we can see there is a creek. I believe it's called Little Beaver Creek that runs through this area as well. From what I understand, there have been searches in the water, numerous searches that have gone on. So, but no sign of him except for one thing that we're going to touch on as we continue here. So what happened when he went running away? I actually did some searching on Twitter to try to fill in the backstory a little bit. And the Unknown Many has this post: Michael Dillard, 15 years old, missing since January 12th, 2018 in Calvin, West Virginia. Dillard was last seen by his mother at their home while they were bringing in bags of wood pellets. He ran behind their house and hasn't been seen since. The only item found was his jacket. So I believe it was a week later they actually do find his jacket. There's no real clues that come from his jacket. It had been sitting out in the snow, so it was a little wet, but it was still relatively clean. It was found, I believe, about 300 yards behind his house. So what's going on with this interaction with the wood pellets? I guess these are wood pellets that are used for a stove inside a home. And according to what his sister says, Michael wasn't feeling real good after coming home from school that day. They could tell that something was up. His sister, who doesn't live with them but lives nearby, and they stopped by her house, said that, she was trying to talk to him a little bit, and he just really seemed kind of closed off. When him and his mother got home, his mother asked for help with bringing the bags of wood pellets in, and he was carrying them 2 at a time, and his mother asked him not to do that. She was afraid that he was going to hurt himself. I think he might have done it again, and she told him, that wasn't a good thing to do. I don't know how strongly that was worded, but in that interaction, it seems like he got upset and then he ran away. He literally ran away from right there. So we have a really unique situation here in that we know his initial intent at this time is running away from home. He's literally running away from home. But we also have his mother witness it. We have them act very quickly. She calls his father. She calls his sister. Everyone comes out. They're searching for him. And within 30 minutes of his disappearance, they're talking to the police. And police are jumping on this and trying to help with the search as well. So in terms of a missing persons case, this is just a family that as soon as he runs off and goes missing, they're doing everything right. I mean, within 30 minutes, they have the authorities engaged. They have their own personal searches going on. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough to find him. And they were worried because it was going to be dark soon and the weather seemed to be turning and it was getting really, really cold. I believe it was negative 22 degrees, if I recall correctly. So we're talking freezing temperatures, which of course gives us a big pause for concern when we know that they find his jacket a week later. Continuing back at the articles, this is from WVN-STV, and we can see the title, Missing State Police Search for a Nicholas County Boy, posted on January 13th, 2018. Troopers said Dillard was last seen around 5 p.m. on Friday, January 12th at his house wearing an orange jacket with blue jeans. Anyone with information on his whereabouts is urged to call. And of course, I have contact information down below, not only for the police department. There is another law enforcement agency. Let me double check so I know what I'm talking about. The Nicholas County Sheriff's Office has also posted their number out there for information about him. And there is a private investigator that is donating his time working with the family. He was also interviewed on the Vanished podcast. And he's even put up a reward of $3,000 for information leading to Michael up until Michael's 18th birthday. So if you have a tip for him as well, I'm going to have the investigation agency's phone number in the description box below. Of course, on top of all that, you could also call in tips to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, to NCMEC. So I'm going to have that. There are many different avenues for you to report information if you have information in this case. And quite honestly, I've said this in videos before, I encourage you to use them all. Sometimes one of these agencies might act a little faster than another. And in a case like this, time could be of the essence. Despite the fact that we're talking about a year later, we have no idea what kind of situations he could be facing or he could be in right now. So every minute that's ticking by could be a very important minute. Continuing over at the registerherald.com. Let's start getting some details from his sister. Officers still unaware of whereabouts of missing Nicholas County teenager. This is from a week later. There was, I believe, 4 different articles that all came out that first week, but they were essentially all saying the same thing. So I'm not going to take you guys through the same information time and time again. This is the first one where we start getting some additional detail. Brittany Kraft, Dillard's sister, said they are still unaware of the whereabouts of her brother. We are absolutely clueless on where he may be, Kraft said. This isn't like him at all. She said her brother was known for not going anywhere without an adult. Although the last time any family members saw Dillard was at home, Kraft said a neighbor claims to have seen him walking along the side of Tioga Road in Craigsville between 4:30 and 5 p.m. Friday. If we just jump back to the map real quick, I believe Craigsville is, we can see it's just east of there. And we're talking a matter of only a couple miles to Craigsville. And this was a little bit of conversation that came up on the Vanish podcast. I think I can really help with. I have a lot of experience when it comes to walking and running. Average speed for someone walking, they can do about 3 miles per hour. So for him to get to Craigsville, if he's walking just at a normal pace, he could probably get there within about 40 minutes. If he's speed walking, if he's walking faster, you could shave that down to about 30. If he's running, and his sister did say he's athletic, if he could run the entire 2 miles all in one shot, there's the likelihood he could get there as quick as 20 minutes. Maybe even a little faster if he happens to be a long distance runner. So those are the approximate time frames. So hearing that we have a sighting of him between 4:30 and 5, and we have kind of a loose time frame. I don't have a solid time on when he was out back with his mom when he decided to run off. This could be a good sighting. And there are many sightings. If you listen to the Vanish podcast, you'll hear about several of them. Many of these sightings don't pan out. I haven't heard about this sighting in particular not being accurate. So we'll keep that in mind as we go on here. There have been a few people saying they've seen someone who looks like him since his disappearance, she said, but none of those tips have amounted to anything, and we haven't gotten any more in the last few days. She notes on the Vanish podcast that there are several teens in the area that just happen to resemble him. So some of these sightings seem to be happening from these teens. It's just misidentification. Continuing with another article at registerherald.com, this one from February 2nd, 2018. According to a press release from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Dillard may still be in the local area, or he may be traveling to North Carolina. Now, that's something I don't quite understand. I keep hearing that he could be traveling to North Carolina, but honestly, I haven't heard any reason for that. I could have missed it while I was going through this research, but I kind of was trying to find out something on that. Another important thing to know here is Dylan is adopted. He was adopted at the age of 4. I don't know if this idea that he's traveling to North Carolina might have to do with his biological family. The police interviewed students at his school, and he did say something about going to see his father. However, Brittany says his father has passed away. So I don't know. We could look at that in a few ways. And, one of them that concerns me is Dylan trying to say that, he's not going to be alive much longer. But outside of that, I don't know if Dylan had that knowledge about his father not being alive. I don't know if the comments we're hearing from the children are accurate. Maybe he was saying that he was going to see someone else or someone related to his father or something along those lines. I'm not sure. There was some really strange comments. And once again, I really want to urge you guys, particularly if you are in the West Virginia area, please listen to the Vanish podcast. Please get all these details. There could be things in that podcast that I'm not relaying here that jostle some memory for you guys. If you really want to help bring this young man home, please take a look at the Vanish podcast. As soon as you're done with this or the next time you have 40 minutes free, I promise you won't be disappointed. In terms of what I do here on YouTube, I think Marissa does the same thing in the podcast world. No creepy music underscoring her information, excellent research, really good details. So please be sure to check that out. Continuing on to MSN.com, this is actually a reprint of the NBC News article. So this is the Dateline article that was put out about this information. West Virginia teenager still missing 2 months later. So we're now getting this report March 19th of 2018. On Wednesday, January 10th, Michael Dillard said he was having the best day of his life, according to his older sister, Brittany Kraft. The next day, Thursday, the good mood continued. Brittany told Dateline he was being kind of obnoxious, but for him to be hyper and stuff is not unusual. Michael, 15, lived with his adopted mom and dad at their home in Calvin, West Virginia. Brittany lives just a few miles away and spoke to Michael almost every day. Friday, January 12th, Michael and his mom came over after school. Brittany said his mood had changed. On Friday, when he got off the bus from school, he was in a weird mood. He came over to my house and would hardly talk to me. He was acting kind of down. Michael and his mom left Brittany's and arrived back at their house around 4:30. After helping his mom carry some things from the car to the house, Michael ran behind the house. He didn't say anything. He just ran back there, Brittany said her mom told her, but he never came back. Brittany says her mom called her and Michael's dad to come over within a few minutes. By 5 p.m., they called 911 to report Michael missing. The West Virginia State Police told Dateline that officers responded to the Dillards' house right away. There was a storm coming, and they knew they only had a few hours until it was too dark to see. The temperature got to 22 degrees below zero that night. In the weeks that followed, numerous dive teams, search crews, bloodhounds, and helicopters were dispatched to search for Michael. They've all come up empty. One interesting thing I learned from the Vanish podcast is his jacket was actually found by a family dog. Even the search dogs aren't the ones to have located his jacket. And it was found in an area where some people are saying that it had already been searched. Brittany's explanation was snow had come in and it's very likely that the jacket was there, but snow had covered it up. Let's get some more details back at the article. His jacket was found about a week and a half after he disappeared, about 300 yards from the house, Brittany told Dateline. It wasn't muddy. It wasn't ripped up. It looked like he had just taken it off. The jacket that was found concerns me, said private investigator John Bonazzo of Bonazzo Suesli Investigative Solutions. He's been working with the Dillard family pro bono to help find Michael. I just want to stop for a moment and say that is awesome. And John, if you happen to see this video, I really appreciate that you have stepped up to help this family in this way. That's amazing. Quote, the jacket could have either been planted there later because the area had already been searched, or there's also a phenomenon that occurs during hypothermia where people start to undress because the body tricks you into thinking you're warm, he added. We've talked about this several times on the channel over the past few years. Paradoxical undressing. Hypothermia starts kicking in. People feel like their skin is literally burning, and it causes them to remove their clothing. Now, is that what we have going on in this case? I don't know. In the cases I've seen where it's been theorized that that has happened, the clothing has been found, maybe not all in one pile, but within a relative distance of each other because they're kind of stripping it off if they're moving as they're moving. And we don't really have that going on here. All we have is literally this jacket being found. But keep in mind, negative 22-degree weather coming this night. The jacket is found. What's he wearing? Or is he possibly in a vehicle somewhere? And that's one of the theories that came up on Vanished as well, is that he got to a point where trucks stop regularly and he might have hopped in with a trucker and gotten a ride. And John on the Vanished podcast talks about that theory a little bit more. Basically, he's saying in West Virginia, you know, you're driving along the road, you see a teenager that's without his jacket standing at the side of the road, it's very likely that he could have gotten picked up by someone and taken somewhere. But let's go ahead and continue with the article. Brittany said her younger brother Michael only had $2 on him. He did have a cell phone, but he didn't take it with him. that is just really, really unfortunate. Of course, if he had a cell phone and he took it with him, then we've got some ping trails that we could start looking at. They have looked at his cell phone. They've tried to determine, was this planned? Was he talking to someone about running off at some point? None of that is really panning out. They also looked at his sister's tablet because he would use that sometime. Nothing was found there either. And if we believe the story that Brittany's telling us, which I have no reason not to, it seems like it was a very impulsive decision, that he was caught up in the moment, maybe upset with what his mother was telling him. Maybe he had already had a rough day and that was the breaking point, and he literally just takes off on foot. I have not heard about any bags missing. I haven't heard the family say that they noticed that any clothing was missing, anything along those lines. There was one thing that came up, which was a picture that they found on his phone, which was of a woman, and the picture had been deleted, and they recovered it. The family did post an image of that woman. Eventually, they found that woman. She has no idea about him or about this case at all. So that lead, unfortunately, also did not pan out. So I don't know. Just from the story that we're hearing up to this point, I don't think this is planned. I think this is something that was just spur of the moment. He felt like he needed to run away, and he did. And there's actually some other important considerations we're going to get to right after this article. But let's get finally one more detail about something he might have on him if you find him. He was also wearing a 3-inch silver cross on a silver chain. So back to Twitter real quick. I believe that this is the chain that's in this photo, and I want to give a quick shout out to Case Warriors. We kind of collaborate on Twitter for sharing information about missing people regularly. And once again, they did a great job putting a poster together that includes very important information. So I think this silver cross is the one that he has with him as well. Let's go ahead and continue to Facebook. This is from the Bring Michael Dillard Home Facebook page, and it's a post that went out June 10th. And you could tell the family was kind of not sure if they should put this information out or not, but I think that it could tie to what's going on here. It could help us understand a bit more of the struggle that he was going through. So I'm going to share it with you guys here as well. We've had a lot of people ask questions about the circumstances of Michael's disappearance. We have worked hard to protect Michael's privacy as much as possible while having his face plastered all over the country. We have hoped he could return home and get back to life as usual. As this nightmare drags on, we as a family have decided there may be some benefit to telling more of the story. Michael suffers from bouts of severe depression, so severe that he spent almost a year in a hospital that specializes in adolescents with mental health issues. Michael came home from the hospital on December 19th. He was doing well. He was only back in school 4 days due to snow days and a problem with the school's heat. So we've got him home less than a month at the point that he runs away, and that's after he's been in a hospital for a year at that point. Could that all be factoring into his decision to run away? I really think that there's something to that. I think there's a strong possibility that could have factored into it. But once again, I'm struggling with it because I'm thinking of this being an unplanned situation where he's running away. Emotionally, maybe this is all building up to that action, and maybe he's afraid to come home because he's afraid that he's going to be put back into this service or some other type of hospital to try to help him deal with this stuff. There's a few cases that keep ringing through my mind here, and they actually have come up on Case Cracked, where we have teenagers that run away right about this age, and the family does not hear from them again until basically after they're legally an adult. So I did just want to throw that out here. We do see that happen with teenagers, and sometimes it's when they're 18, sometimes it's a year or two after that. So I just want to give a little hope to the Dillard family here, because I do see cases occasionally with this age range, but we have some different circumstances here where it might be a bit understandable to why he's afraid to come home. And you heard the clip at the start of this. The sister says, "We don't necessarily need you to come home. We just want to know that you're safe." but knowing that he's not yet legally an adult, he might be reluctant to send that message. And I would just say to Michael, there's some way for you to safely send that message and to not leave a trace of where you are. It's as simple as buying a stamp, writing a letter, no return address, take it to a post office box somewhere nowhere near where you live and just drop that in. You can do this in a reasonable way and let the people that have cared about you for so long know that you're okay, but you're not ready to come home yet. I think that would mean the world to them. And also keep in mind, there's resources that are being used to look for you. People go missing all the time. Those resources could be used to help other people as well. And I think you're a smart kid, and I think you would really want that to happen instead of people tying up these resources looking for you. Please get a message back to your family. Continuing on the Facebook post, Michael's depression causes him to feel very down on himself at times. Sometimes he has a hard time accepting love from friends and family. Michael, if you read this, please know we love you unconditionally. We would be so happy just to know you're okay. You're not in trouble and no one is mad at you. Please come home. If someone has Michael and is holding him against his will, let him go. His family loves him and needs him. If you know something, come forward, do the right thing. And of course, that is why we're doing this video. We're raising exposure to this case. All the contact info that you could need is down below. Please, if you have information about this case, send it in so this family can have some help and hope and maybe find out where Michael is, or at least find out that he's okay. The most recent post was from December 10th. Michael's 16th birthday is in 3 days. I always thought this would be a time for driving lessons and relationship advice. I never could have imagined that something like this could happen in my family. So you can see the family is very upset and hurting over this. Once again, this is the poster made by Case Warriors. I just want to give it to you one more time, a little bit bigger, and we can see that necklace right in there. I'm trying to zoom in on it a little more for you guys. There we go. On top of that, in the links below, you will find another link to a profile over at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. You will also find a link to a Web Sleuths thread on this case. It's only 2 pages, but it was pretty helpful. I got to tell you, something is going weird with the Google News results on this. I think it's because his name is close to some other people's names where the results are not coming back real strong for him. So this thread is actually pretty helpful if you want to dive into this case a little bit stronger as well. I also found a topics forum. These things can kind of be hit or miss, but I'm going to include it in the links down below. Sometimes it's a good way of getting your finger on the pulse of the rumor mill that's going on around a particular case. This isn't one of the stronger ones that I've bumped into. I'm going to be very honest with you guys about it. But if you want to see what some of the locals are discussing in terms of this case, I find that the topics threads are usually a good way to do that. And of course, I know I've already told you guys about it, I think 3 times at this point, but the Vanished episode, really, really good work. More information than I've covered here. I've given you kind of the overview of the case with as many of the important details as I think I could get in there, but there are many more details to this case covered on this episode of Vanished, so I hope you guys will check it out. And finally, there is a GoFundMe that is running for this case as well. You can see it was actually started by his sister, Brittany, way back on February 3rd. I know that they've been spending money. I've seen the posters that they're buying. I know there was bracelets that were made for searching for him as well. They raised $250 in the past 10 months. And I want to give a big thank you to those 8 people that donated to that. On behalf of myself and my amazing supporters from both PayPal and Patreon, we are going to make a donation to this today as well. And I hope the family can use that to continue their search efforts and hopefully bring this young man home. So what do you think, Brain Scratchers? It's strange because on the outset, this looks like a pretty straight up runaway case. But there has to be another component to it. Either there was some form of planning before the fact and someone was there to pick him up, which I kind of don't know if I believe just because of the timing of everything. It's interesting though, because it could be that that was his mother's perception of what was happening, that they were having the disagreement, but maybe that's really not what was happening. It was normal for him to go to his sister's house before coming home. So he probably knew around what time he would usually be home. So is it possible that he could have planned something with someone? Yes. According to the information from his sister about what type of person he is and how impulsive he is, and the mother's account of what seems to have happened right before he ran away, it feels like this was an impulsive decision, but I don't think we can rule out that there was some level of planning. If there wasn't some level of planning, was there something else in effect here? Did he get to where trucks usually stop? Did he get a ride from there? Did he just hitchhike and find some ride out of the area or to another nearby area? I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities in this. And then the jacket being left behind. Very strange twist to this whole thing. Of course, there's also the darkest of thoughts, which I know many of you are out there are considering, so I don't want to completely ignore it. His sister was pretty clear that it seems like the family and the authorities aren't necessarily buying into the theory that his body is in the woods somewhere and hasn't been discovered. Another interesting point that is brought up by the private investigator is if he was freezing, could he have gone into what's kind of sometimes referred to as burrowing? Essentially, you get so cold, you just try to find heat somewhere. You cover yourself up. You can cover yourself up with dirt or leaves, crawl into something. You can crawl into a vehicle that's not being used somewhere, something along those lines. Could he have essentially accidentally hidden himself trying to protect himself from the elements? I think that's an important consideration as well. But we've had numerous searches. We've had dogs out there, and we're not getting any indicators from them that something like that could be going on here. So I don't know. There's several different avenues with this case. What do you guys think? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And as always, I'm going to ask that we please remain respectful. There is a very strong chance that the family is going to come across this video. I know because I'm basically going to be contacting the 2 Twitter accounts for them tomorrow. So please remain respectful in the comments. We could talk about anything, but there is a respectful way to talk about things, and there is a less sensitive way. And you guys are usually really, really good about that. But I just want to put that warning out for this case in particular. This is a very young man, a man that was struggling, and now his family's struggling, and we want to help them any way that we can. Before we continue to comments from last week's episode, I want to give a very big thank you to Camille Chin that donated through PayPal to help keep me here doing what I love doing and helping out people like we are in today's case with a donation. So thank you, Camille. She also said some very nice things about the work that we do here on the channel. I really appreciate that. Okay, so last week's episode, really heartbreaking case, and many of you seem moved by it. I can say many of you seem kind of angry, and I totally understand. This is a case where we have a 2-year-old girl, now 3 years old, that was with people that should be taking care of her, and they came back and she didn't. This is the case of Zayla Walker. Let's go ahead and start with a comment from Sammy Stern. Okay, did I miss something? Why was there no Amber Alert issued for her? I believe that they did not realize that there was a risk that was going on at this time, which is kind of strange because we know that the father was actually called in as missing before she was. So you would think if there was some coordination with the records, if someone would have just looked at and said, hey, this father's been registered as a missing person. Let's call and talk to the person that reported that, which I believe was his mother. They might have got the information that, oh, by the way, he took my car. And maybe that could have escalated this into Amber Alert territory. There's certain conditions that each state has specifically for issuing Amber Alerts. Usually they are that it seems the child is in imminent danger, and they have to have some reasonable information to put out there for the Amber Alert. Typically a vehicle description, a license plate. You'll notice when you see Amber Alerts, they're not vague. They're usually extremely detailed about what you're looking for. it seems like they had the pieces to put that together, but I don't know if his mother lives in the same area. I just feel like those missing persons reports did not connect. So it seems like that's why the Amber Alert didn't happen. But let's go ahead and continue with your comment. I understand why at first you might think she's not in danger because she's with her parents, but the parents obviously didn't have custody for a reason. They were either incapable of caring for her or there was suspected abuse, neglect already. Marissa Rosa actually put in some information here. From an article I read, the mother was sole custodian and the father isn't even on the birth certificate. So while they were together, the concern was lower, but now the mother is back and said the little girl's whereabouts are unknown from a week before they were all reported missing. She was only with her father in that week. The concern has grown, and I would say the mother has probably put in a formal complaint. So I hope that clears it up. Yeah, the mother did have custody, so that would also certainly work against the Amber Alert being issued. And remember that the whole aspect of the mother being intimidated by the father as well is not very clear, I think, to authorities until they interview them once they're back from that traveling around. I still shake my head every time I say that. I can't believe what that trip turned into. I just, if I was going to do something wrong and I wanted to throw people off the trail of what I was doing that was wrong, that's the kind of trip I would take. And that's something that really scares me about this case. But let's continue here with a comment from Melissa C. Maybe the mom went unwillingly because he already kidnapped her daughter and he was using that to drive fear in her. Hopefully she is somewhere safe. Now, that is an interesting point, and I do think I wouldn't be surprised to hear that the mother was being manipulated in this case and that she doesn't have all the facts. The story that the grandmother was told that Zayla might have been with her father's family, I think it was in California, if I remember correctly. Maybe the mother heard that story too, and she bought into that for a matter of days before they went on this trip. I don't know. We don't have a good, clear picture of the manipulation that could be going on within this relationship, but we do have at least a little bit of an image of a woman that's in fear. So how he was manipulating her and controlling her is yet to really be understood. But it does seem like there was some level of that, particularly with the police not charging her. J.S. Dykstra responded to Melissa, I thought that too, or that she thought the girl was fine with relatives and her mom made a mistake and boom, got home and found the girl wasn't with his people. Once again, just kind of supporting the theory that I was talking about as well, that some lie threw the mother off for a period of time. And obviously at some point she figured out that was not the truth. Terry Dean says, I have to assume the FBI is involved. I don't remember seeing a particular note about the FBI being involved, but I would agree with you. I would have to assume that as well. We've got kind of one of the usual indicators anytime a case is crossing state lines, but we also have this crossing international lines. So I'm with you. I would assume there's some level of FBI involvement going on with this case as well. Let's continue with your comment. I suspect the father was abusive towards Zayla and her mom is very afraid of him. He got them in the car under false pretenses, then started driving to Mexico. The mom was afraid to ask too many questions out of fear. He checked them into a Mexican motel, then left the mom there to go sell Zayla, only he didn't tell them where he was really taking Zayla. When he came back, he told the mom to get in the car. She could ask very few questions for fear of her life. He probably just told her Zayla was safe, and that's all she needed to know. I pray she is with a family that will love her, but I worry that something worse has happened to her. Hearing her grandma say that Zayla called herself Sweet Pea broke my heart. Such a sweetie. It's an interesting theory, and I'm afraid of that as well. And there's several of you who were talking about different types of trafficking and different aspects that could be going on with trafficking here. The trip to Mexico concerns me, but then the trip all across the country concerns me. I mean, all this movement through all these different states, taking someone else's car really feels like you're on the run. Like there's this fantasy of you're now an outlaw and you just have to do this for the rest of your life. And then all of a sudden, a couple months into it, that fantasy wears off and you just try to quietly sneak back home. I mean, it just seems like that's what's happened in this case. So where did that little girl go? Was there really some type of trafficking exchange that happened here? There's plenty of opportunity for it with all the motion that we see that they took. There's opportunity for other theories as well that could be much darker than that. But I'm hopeful, just as the authorities were noted in last week's episode as being hopeful also, that she is alive somewhere. And I'm with you, Terry. I hope she's with a family. Maybe it's a family that couldn't adopt legitimately for some reason, and they decided to do some type of black market action to get her in their custody, something along those lines. At least it's strange to say that might be the best case scenario that's going on here, but it might. And I'm kind of with you. I hope that that's happening as well. This is really bringing up another point I just want to tell you guys about. If you don't know much about child trafficking, be sure to search for Johnny Vlogs, Destiny Rescue. We've had them on the channel twice. We've done 2 pretty lengthy interviews with Destiny Rescue and gotten into many details about child trafficking internationally, actually. It's mostly focused internationally. It's not really specifically about America, but if you've missed those episodes, you might really want to check them out. A lot of information, a lot of knowledge that is shared in those that might pertain to this case. So just wanted to let you guys know about that. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Searchlight. Thank you for caring about these cases like I do. I hope you guys have a great day, and please come back to the Lord and Arts channel on Friday for another episode of Brainscratch. Quick reminder before I let you go, next week I am off the whole week, but we will be back on January 31st with a new episode of Case Cracked. So don't worry about me next week, just taking the holiday week off. Take care, everyone. I'll see you back here on Friday.